So, for the past year or so, I've actually been not so subtly hinting at all the different ways you can deal with the Mothra matchup in the highlight clips, but to be completely honest, no one plays this matchup in this position unless they're completely dead lost. If you don't understand how Mothra's dive bomb frame data works, it's exactly the same as like Terry, Burknuckle, or Cammy Spiral Arrow. When it's spaced at max range, it is actually safe on block, which means Lilin has absolutely no chance to retaliate here. Some people, when they play against Cammy, they do like to sit in a position like this and try to check the Spiral Arrow coming in, and SMG can sort of do that with his 5H, but it's not really all that rewarding because his 5H doesn't do that much damage, and if you see here, Griffin has actually played in this position for so long that he's made completely unnecessary optimizations and is actually dive bombing from a lower height where he would actually go under the 5H. Another good tip here is, even if you are going to sit in a corner, walk forward so you're 1 pixel out of the corner. If you didn't know, when your back is touching the corner, knockback mechanics change and the attacker gets pushed back instead. For Mothra, this makes her dive much harder to punish than if she were to just careen into you. Do not let Mothra just casually walk into your airspace like this. You have a DB. These clips also showcase one of the reasons why SMG is traditionally considered a really bad matchup against Mothra. He's very susceptible to cross-unders and cross-ups because he's really wide and he doesn't understand the concept that sometimes monsters can be right under him, and he actually doesn't have any attack that covers the space under him when he's coming down from a jump, which means it's really easy for Mothra to just dive under him every time he jumps. Lilin does a bit better here, punishing the Miss Meaty, and as you can see, not being able to block and being cornered is kind of a really bad combination, especially when her wake up, that liftoff, it's not actually very good, and I'll show that later. Here's a fun fact. You see that jumping 2H? That actually only has a hitbox on the leg, like knee to foot. It doesn't have a hitbox at the thigh, so Mothra can just dash forward into him and it would miss. Most characters in the game can exploit this. Another fun fact, Mothra's dive bomb just sometimes randomly goes through SMG. This only happens with him. It can make an unsafe dive safe. When Mothra does an unsafe dive from a low height like this, 2L is a more damaging punish than 5H. You actually get robbed here. Mothra's priority is really bad and that 2H should have won. If you didn't already know, when you break throws in this game, you're plus. Please just DP. I have no idea what side that first dive hit on, but this second dive is actually a back turn unblockable. If you didn't know, when you're getting up and facing the wrong way, there's like 1 or 2 frames where you can't block. As you can see, punishing dive bombs with SMG is actually really easy. You just keep mashing 5H. And you can also see that TP is really good, and Meaty 2L is really good. This is actually a really cool setup by Dboy and Griffin, where they use the Holy Seal Super to pull you out of the corner and get an ambiguous cross-up on their next dive. It should also be noted that they were only allowed to do this because you did not DP. Another good takeaway from this clip is that instant air jump 2L is, of course, minus on hit. Please just DP. Oh, and don't jump when you're in the corner and she's spamming wing chop. That's like the one time that move is really dangerous, because she can confirm into a heavy dive. If you do find yourself in a situation like this, where you have to come down with a button because she's under you, don't use 2H because of the aforementioned no hitbox in the thigh. Your best chance is going to be 5H, but to be honest, that wouldn't really save you here either. What I like to do when I know I made a bad jump is I just use a light leg buster and hopefully juke the punish. All of these jumping 2Ls are actually punishable with a heavy dive, except this one dive where he tried to do because he kicked her really low. This was one of the most confusing interactions I've seen. She makes a bad dive and you punish it with 5H and it works. She makes the exact same bad dive and then you press 5L, which never works. She makes the same mistake a third time and you just don't block. So one of the strategies I like to use to control her movement is just throw out an air light Mega Buster. If you didn't already notice, everything that Mothra does makes her bigger vertically, so just putting a projectile near her means that she can't use any of her movement skills, she can't dive, she can't wing chop, because all of these rotate her body and will make her get hit by the Mega Buster. This paralyzer missile was actually an accident, because, GKD input leniency, but you get the point. You go for a meaty 2L, and if it hits, you keep mashing 2L. Otherwise, you just let go of the D-pad, go back to neutral, and be ready to TP if she does the liftoff. I like to use light DP with SMG because it's plus. Both versions of his DP actually knock down despite shooting upwards, so the plus moves is really nice against Mothra because you get follow-up pressure like this. Another thing to consider is I see a lot of you guys go over very optimal stun punishes, but sometimes it's better to take a less optimal punish and make sure you're ready to Oki. I could have ended here if I didn't botch the DP. Here you see an example of how bad the die priority really is, and I can just check it by randomly throwing out 5H. Another cute tip is roaring is 0 frame, which means even though she has meaty on me here, I can just mash 5A like an 8 and trade a stun for minor damage. This is an example of how to abuse her bad priority when she's in the corner. You can jump backwards if you think she's gonna dive and try to punish the end of the dive, or you can just throw out random buttons like this with the belief that your button will win because her priority is bad. And here we see the first usage of the Dboy tech, using the running H and then doing a light DP immediately after. This is really hard for Mothra to get through. You also see a bit of my bad reactions and input leniency screwing me over, but I save it by mashing 5H. I mash some more random 5H here and get with punish for it, but it's okay, this is very rare. This is an example of the random dive going through SMG, and this actually cost me the round. With enough experience, you'll start to recognize when the dive is well spaced and it's safe on block. I get tick throwed anyways here though. When she makes a major mistake like this, your heaviest punish is of course jumping 5H because it gets a knockdown, and this is how you punish the liftoff from mid-screen. You can see how much she's struggling to just do anything with all these light Mega Busters flying around and denying her space. Once you force her down to near ground level, she's really vulnerable, she can't block, she has horrible priority, and you can just maul her with basically anything. I actually just wanted to use the super as the movement skill here, but because she rotates her body for everything she does, she stuck her butt down and she died. I started using heavy DP a bit here because I was feeling a little spicy, and you can kind of see why I don't like it. It's very rare to get all 4 hits, and I lose my turn even if it does hit. I also get caught into Lilin's self-sabotage spacing here, and you see things get really dicey. I try to jump and juke, but because I got anti-aired by wing chop, now I'm in a really horrible position where she's too close to TP, I'm forced to dash under and get crossed up. But I make a comeback because J5H leads to some really nasty damage. I try to put up a bullet hell here because I have a life lead and I can run the clock. You see I walk 1 pixel out of the corner, so if I had blocked that dive, it would have been punishable and I would have won. You see me using a very generic dive counter here of just up back and throw out my best horizontal air normal to punish the recovery. You also see how nice the plus frames from light DP are, because it pulled her back down into 2 more 5Hs. This was a really scrappy finish where I made a bad jump, I used a light Mega Buster to try to juke to punish, and we kind of just both miss everything until he missed worse. While we're here, let's talk about the new Dboy tech a bit. The tech is to do the running H and then do a light DP right after. Why is this so strong? It's because her priority is really bad, which means if she tries to check your approach, she's very likely to just get hit by the running headbutt instead. So effectively, this compensates your weakness to cross-ups, because now you also have indefensible offense. Alright, looks like it didn't happen in these clips, but there's actually something else I want to talk about. One of the other random things that Mothra can do from her dive, on SMG specifically, is sometimes she gets caught by like this die, and she like wobbles up and down a little bit, and when this happens, it just happens to stop her in this really perfect spacing where 5H goes over her head and 2L goes under her chin. It's pretty unlikely anyone's actually going to react to this happening, but when this does happen, just know that your only punish for that dive is a grab, and because your quick grab is counterproductive, you're forced to go for a 360. It's a really bad situation. You may have heard Lilin complaining about the unblockable dive glitch, but actually all characters drop their guard at the very last frames of the dive, and this is what's supposed to happen. They drop their guard, they reduce the size of their hurt box, so they get an easier whip punish. This is what it feels like to not be named SMG and actually have attacks that hit under you. You also see me using the same strategy of just absolutely not respecting Mothra and just throwing out random buttons because her damage sucks and her priority sucks. Oh, this is why she's so vulnerable when she's getting up in the corner, by the way. She goes for her other wake up option here, which is hold up forward, and yes, it's exactly as bad as it sounds. Here's another generic dive counter that SMG also doesn't have access to. You can just backdash and make it lift and whiff punish. I don't backdash far enough here, but you get the point. This is the other good Oki option on her if you don't have like a good TP. You can just up forward on her wake up, and they'll chase down to lift off. This is what's supposed to happen when she tries to do multiple grabs on you in the corner. I'm plus, so I grab first. Another example of just up forward Oki. Another example of why being an ape and having zero respect for anything Mothra does actually wins you the matchup. And also another backdash whip punish. Another example of abusing zero frame roars to trade some damage for a stun. And also another example of why liftoff really isn't very good. Oh, here's another fun trick that anyone not named SMG can do. Most characters, their crouching block and their standing block look really different. So I stood up at the last second to make her miss her cross up and make her dive unsafe as a result. Somewhere out there, Pullman and Shavoni from the Garo Discord are probably ripping their hair out over me having reactions because of this dash block. But actually, this was not on reaction. If you look at it closely, he makes a mistake of dashing one extra time. Because Mothra's movement options are so committal and they have such bad recovery, this essentially means I know exactly when he's going to dive, and he has to use a heavy dive because I am threatening to stun him with a roar. And I have shown on many occasions that I am absolutely going to ape and run forward and just press roar when he's in situations like this. So the only thing he can do to save his tournament in life is to get a knockdown and get some of his fate meter back, hence the heavy dive. What I really like about GKD is that it's a lot more about understanding the narrative of the fight like this, rather than a more traditional interpretation of skill expression. It's not really about reactions or execution. It's about setting up situations like this, where you know logically your opponent only has one or two options, and you playing one step ahead of them, based on their past behavior, based on the current situation. And it's a lot more about this awareness and strategy than just having practiced more or, having faster reactions. There's much more of a mental conversation in something like this than like a City of the Wolves. And it's a much more artistic concept of player expression than just skill. This is why I've kind of avoided doing a video like this for a very, very long time. I am aware that I am considered one of the best players of this game on the planet, but to be honest, this is just one of many interpretations of how you can approach this game. So I've always tried to keep things with just the facts and not how you would use those facts to your advantage, but honestly, it's not really working out for you guys with this Mothra matchup, so hopefully this video helps.